The war in the Middle East has entered second month, or either the second phase according to the Israeli government, or perhaps the second phase of ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, as some may call it. Which evidently seems to be the case. Israel is relentlessly bombing civil population, infrastructure, medical facilities, and even the ambulances carrying wounded people, all for a crime that wasn't even committed with their consent. It's been more than a month since the Israeli onslaught began over Gaza, and the whole world doesn't even seem to blink an eye. It's simply gone asleep. Only few of the countries came forth in open support of Palestine, and Iran was one of them. Although Iran denies any direct involvement in planning of the October 7th attacks, but since the beginning of the conflict, Iran was the only country which openly supported Hamas's actions of October 7th, and has been mounting pressure on Israel and the US through its proxies in the Middle East. From October 7th till now, there has been more than 40 attacks on US installation throughout the Middle East, specifically in Iraq and Syria, and all of them sponsored by Iran. In response, US deployed multiple Air Force squadrons and thousands of troops all around the bases in Middle East, plus redeployment of 2 carrier strike groups in the region, one of which was deployed directly off the coast of Iran. In the beginning, Hezbollah threatened Israel with two-front war should it launch ground invasion of Gaza, and started limited clashes with IDF on the border posts, which turned out be nothing more than mere threats. Although these small border clashes have become routine, but so far, Hezbollah hasn't opened any second front for Israel, and they seem reluctant to do so in the future as well. But for a hypothetical scenario, let's assume that Iran puts the political repercussions behind and decides to go to war with Israel. How would that conflict unfold, and what will be the outcome of it? Let's dive into it. First of the many hurdles Iran would face is the vast land distance between Iran and Israel, which is about 1,000 kilometers, and this distance includes 3 countries in between, namely Iraq, Syria, and Jordan. Iraq does have one of the largest Shia Muslim population in the world after Iran. And besides it, Iraq is one of the biggest critiques of Israel. Iraq doesn't have established relations with Israel. In fact, back in 2012, Iraqi Prime Minister said that Iraq wants relations with all countries except Israel. In 2022, Iraqi parliament passed a law criminalizing any attempt of normalizing relations with Israel. In addition, Iran has a significant proxy presence in Iraq in the shape of multiple Shia militias. Iran has built considerable political clout in Iraq since the fall of Saddam Hussein, and its wide sphere of influence is vast. Iraq does have somewhat decent air force and air defense capability, but if Iran decides to send fighter jets and missiles through Iraq, considering the sphere of influence and Israeli brutalities in Gaza, it might not mind at all. Getting through Syria will not be a hard job, as Syria's Assad government is already pro-Iran and deeply in sphere of Iranian influence. Jordan, on the other hand, is an independent kingdom with good established relationship with Israel and is pretty much an U.S. sphere of influence. In addition, U.S. has a massive air base in Jordan, which recently received USAF's F-15 squadron from UK's RAF Lakenheath. Jordan will definitely oppose Iranian incursion and will not allow Iran to use its airspace to attack Israel. It might not be able to intercept Iranian missiles, but it can intercept and shoot down Iranian jets on its skies and beyond. So, in a one-on-one scenario, we will divide the capabilities of both into 4 categories. First, and the most important one, is air power. In terms of sheer numbers of fighter jets, Israel has a relevant advantage of more than 50 aircraft, as Global Firepower 2023 rankings reports that Iran operates 160 aircraft compared with Israel's 241. However, the critical question here likely pertains to an issue of technological superiority, given that a single 5th-generation F-35 has shown in multiple war games that it is capable of using long-range or high-fidelity targeting sensors and advanced weapons to destroy a much larger number of 4th-generation aircraft and Iranian air forces consist of Cold War relics like F-4 Phantom, F-5, MiG-29A with F-14 as primary fighter aircraft. Any quick analysis of available assets and technologies would suggest that Israel is likely to operate with a distinct advantage over Iran in the air, something which would make it very difficult for Iran to make any lasting progress with a ground invasion. The question of Israeli air superiority also weighs heavily upon the feasibility of Iran being capable of launching any kind of effective aerial operation against Israel with distance being so vast. In order to access Israel, Iranian air forces would need to get through Iraq, Syria, or somehow transit the Persian Gulf. All scenarios wherein approaching Iranian forces would easily be intercepted by long-range patrols and early warning aircrafts and be vulnerable to Israeli attacks. Therefore, apart from the prospect of Iran having a good number of standoff air-launched cruise missiles, there do not appear to be a wide sphere of ways in which Iran might actually be able to attack Israel with any measure of success. Standoff missile attacks from Syrian airspace would seem a viable option, but Iran doesn't possess standoff weaponry in such numbers to make any difference, simply because of the technological limitations due to sanctions and arms embargo. It seems irrelevant to talk about ground operation and capability because of the extreme disparity in air power where outcome of the conflict would most likely to be decided. But let's play fair. Iran does appear to have a larger ground force, particularly when it comes to tanks and armored vehicles. Global Firepower's 2023 military assessments, for instance, list Iran as having 4,071 tanks compared to Israel's 2,200 tanks. However, having 2,000 more tanks than Israel does not ensure military overmatch, as sheer numbers of tanks may prove to be much less of an advantage should a smaller tank force be equipped with vastly superior sensors, weapons, computing, and targeting systems. This has been proved in the past, where in both Gulf Wars, vast fleets of Iraqi armor was laid to ruin by more sophisticated, but less in number U.S. MV-1 Abrams and Bradley vehicles. Although recent events and ongoing conflict has debunked Merkava's overhyped capability, it would still fare much better on the battlefield than Iran's Soviet-era T-72. Iran's first widely reported indigenous tank, called the Karar, has emerged in recent years, a platform said to be based upon an upgraded Iranian T-72S chassis. The Iranian tank, reported to operate with an electro-optical fire control system, laser rangefinder, and ballistic computer, would at least on the surface appear to most likely be vastly inferior to the Israeli Merkava. The Israeli Merkava is among the most advanced armored vehicles in the world. It can carry infantry or injured soldiers, leverage a rear exit hatch for dismounted operations or safety escape, and perhaps of greatest significance, its main gun tube can itself fire anti-tank missiles. Iran operates nearly 400,000 more military personnel than Israel, as Iran's total force of 1,150,000 is significantly larger than Israel's reported force of 646,000. This difference, however, is not likely to be much of a factor if Iran cannot get in position to launch a ground invasion and operates a largely inferior ground army in terms of weapons and technology. Coming to the third category, the rocket force. Iran have much more artillery and multiple launch rocket systems when compared to Israel, yet both traditional artillery and 70 to 80 km reaching MLRS would not be in position to strike Israel unless they were moved close to its borders through forward deployment in Syria or Lebanon. At the same time, Iran is reported to operate a large number of short, medium, and long-range ballistic missiles in position to hit Israel. An examination of Iran's large ballistic missile arsenal with a mine guidance and range raises a serious threat possibility to Israel, as Iran appears to now operate at least 5 different long-range ballistic missiles capable of hitting Israel from Iran. Maps of the Middle East show Iranian missiles are easily able to hit Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel from locations throughout Iran, as Tel Aviv is less than 2,000 kilometers from Tehran. This means some ballistic missiles launched from Iran's capital can hit Israel, and an even higher number of long-range weapons can easily reach Israel from other locations within western Iran. The famous Shahab 3, for instance, is listed by Iran Watch as capable of traveling 100 kilometers with a 1,000 kilograms warhead. The liquid-fuel, single-stage Shahab 3 rocket is now deployed and exists in large numbers. The longest-range ballistic missile listed by Iran Watch is the Khorramshahr 1, 2, and 4. Weapons cited as able to travel as far as 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. This means the missile could hit anywhere in Israel from Tehran or most places throughout central and western Iran. Other Iranian medium-range ballistic missiles capable of traveling 1,600 kilometers or more are Ghadar, Imad, and Paveh missiles and are now deployed, according to Iran Watch. The Iranian Sejal MRBM can travel 2,000 kilometers as well. But in spite of all this ballistic missile capability, most of these missiles would be intercepted by robust Israeli ballistic missile defense umbrella that include high-end systems like David Sling, Arrow 3, and Patriot missile defense systems. Since the beginning of the ongoing conflict, Arrow 3 has successfully intercepted multiple ballistic missiles fired towards Israel by Houthi rebels from Yemen. The fourth and the final category is Navy, but none of the both countries possess naval assets of any significance. Iran is believed to operate 19 submarines, while Israel has 5 submarines in its fleet, but again, Iranian submarines are old and less effective due to technological limitations. Most of the Iranian Navy consists of small missile boats, which would be insignificant for such long distances at sea. So, naval assets of both nations might not confront at all simple, due to the range limitations faced by the both.